Hello ladies and gents, welcome back to the Interplanetary Chase on Kerbal Space Program. You join us in the Kerbal Orbital Lab data collector, and the time has almost come ladies and gents. All we need to do before we can have a look at what's available to us and delve into our new technologies is to send up one of our scientists. In this instance we're sending up, I believe that says Bill, looking at my preview, and all we need to do, no it's not Bill, it's Bob, ignore me, and all we have to do of course is dock with the station, get Bob out to collect the data, move it to the absolutely massive number of data storage units that we've since attached to this thing, and of course return it back to Kerbin. So easy mission on paper, but of course let's see how this goes, shall we? As of course we're already at our apoapsis of 100 kilometers there. Well, we're not at it where we are now, and of course all we need to do now is attempt to catch the station. And once again, it was a bit of a late launch, and of course it doesn't particularly help that we launched when the station is at a bit of an orbital inclination, of course. So as you can see, we do have a couple of close encounters, but it's not really much closer than we currently have now. So this is going to be a very interesting rendezvous, I think. But regardless, we're going to see what we can do. What I am particularly proud of with this particular vessel is how much RCS authority it has, because of course it's got, I believe, 4 thrusters pointing either direction, which was unintentional because of course it's got 2 sets of manually placed RCS thrusters, and then the command pods actually have 1 set each, and because we have 2 command pods we essentially have 2 additional sets of thrusters, so also evidential I suppose. And on the same note, we have managed to catch up to the station. We're just under a kilometre away from it now. Going to point target retrograde to obviously kill our relative velocity to the station here. And of course, from now, it's simply a matter of preparing ourselves for a docking manoeuvre, which should be relatively simple. And once again, we've killed our velocity completely now, owing to the fact that there are some additional RCS thrusters on here which I didn't account for. I think the RCS sensor of thrust might be a little bit off. As you can see, there was a little bit of yaw translation happening in the docking mode when we were trying to go to either side, but that hasn't affected our ability to dock, as you can see. So all we can do now is collect all into one of the pods, which will completely fill that up with some data. And of course it's a matter of getting our Kerbal out and taking the data from the lab, and then moving, of course, what they can into our data storage units. I believe we have 5 experiment storage units for radial ones, as you can see. We also have 4 along the top there, and we also have 1 experiment return unit, which is where the drone core and the docking port is placed on top of. So I hope we have enough space, although it doesn't look like we do. Having said that, it is only 11 data, so it's not overall much to lose there, to be honest. So of course, that data is done. We're going to point retrogrades. I'm just going to RCS our way away from the station a little bit before we fire retrogrades, as we don't want to, shoot into the station and essentially act as a mass driver, right? So here we go. Apoapsis is, or not apoapsis, periapsis is in the atmosphere, and of course from now it's just a matter of time before we complete re-entry. So so far so good. And of course what we're doing is we're just using the RCS thrusters to bring our periapsis a little bit lower, just to ensure we don't skip along the atmosphere or accidentally perform an aero brake, because we don't need this mission to go on for any longer than it has to, given its simplicity. So here we go. Our periapsis is in the negatives now, which means we're at critical speed when it comes to orbits, and as you can see, we have now entered the atmosphere. All 8 of our parachutes have deployed. That's 4 main parachutes and 4 drogue parachutes. As for drogue, should pop first. There we go. Followed by the main ones at about 500 meters above sea level. And that is wonderful. So of course, almost mission complete. All we need to do now is, of course, recover this vessel and see what we get. Now, it's worth mentioning that I'm doing this for the sake of kind of continuancy. because of course we do already have all of the science, but I wanted to return the data just to be a bit realistic here. And Bob, has got a couple of ribbons, being the Endurance ribbon and the G-Force 9 ribbon. I assume that was in re-entry. So wonderful stuff. Now, ladies and gents, it's time we go and spend some of our science points. First things first, I'm having a look at the actuators because I like the look of some of the rotation servos. So we're going to get those. Of course, we want very heavy rocketry for the fuel tanks that we got previously. So yes, please. Having a look at high performance fuel systems for some bigger tanks. Very good. Advanced metalworks for some structural parts, mainly for the shielded docking ports. So we'll absolutely go for that. Advanced metamaterials, that gives us big fairings, so we'll go for that. I think specialised control, because we've been desperate for that SAS module. Unmanned tech, or specialised electrics maybe, to help us get to the experimental electrics with RTGs. Maybe, although we need to have a look around, because of course I want to go for the longer range antennas eventually. We do want advanced science tech, as if I do any missions similar to the last one, then I might be able to mine some ore and bring it back up to the station for processing back into fuel. So having a look at large probes maybe. I don't think we have anything big enough that could utilise these just yet. So I think what we're going to do is, once again, we could go for either this or electronics to go to automation and get the longer range antennas. So that is that done. Now we have the RA100 relay antenna, and obviously a few more communitrons. Large probes, once again, we don't have anything big enough yet, so I think we'll just go for electrics for some better solar panels, along with the high power electrics, of course. Possibly thinking specialist electrics for fuel cells, although I don't really think we'll need those just yet. Ion propulsion. That is absolutely something I want to look into for our longer range probes. So that is going to be the last thing we'll be able to afford. And wonderful. So I think, as it stands, we're more or less on the cutting edge of technology. And of course, what better way to test things than, of course, to build a next-gen relay satellite using our brand new shiny RA100 antenna. So, of course, big probe core, massive antenna, nice little reaction wheel there, SAS module obviously, battery, RCS tank, another battery just to be safe, followed by an adapter, and of course we need to find ourselves an ion engine. Wonderful. Now, Gigantor solar panels is actually be more than adequate to keep us fueled. I feel like something's missing, however we will come back to that, and RCS, just to assist with manoeuvring, is obviously ion isn't the most powerful, but it is the most efficient, which is what we need. Followed by maybe Communitron 88 for additional coverage, and high gain antenna for fast data transmission, as we need to kind of rotate that around, I think. Wonderful. Okay, now we need some batteries just to be safe. We'll kind of clip those in a little bit just so they look flush and don't clip into the solar panels. And you may have noticed that there's no point having an ion engine, obviously, if we're not going to have any xenon gas, which it needs to work. So thankfully we did remember. Just moving everything so it's kind of in line with our centre of gravity here, just to ensure stability. I mean, I'm sure that that SAS module will be enough to keep us stable regardless, but still, you know, there's no point if it's not efficient, right? And of course, we need efficiency because ion engines are very power hungry. Now, time to build the deployer for this thing, because of course I want to try and put this thing in a polar orbit high around Kerbin, just I suppose to overwatch the rest of the comms network. So, just strutting everything up, so far so good. I don't think we have any SAS modules big enough for this stage, so that's not necessarily a problem as we move that upwards. I'm wondering if we have any kind of engine clusters for this this stage, but it doesn't look like we do, so that's not a matter. I'm wondering what engines we have to put down here now, and of course I spot the Mammoth, which is kind of everyone's go-to when it comes to, I believe this is the 5-metre tank. What I am going to try and do is rejig the upper stage a little bit, so I'm going to try and make it so we're able to return this stage, and as it stands we are missing a couple of bits, so I'm going to fix that with some batteries just to ensure that it has enough power. And that particular unmanned guidance unit does of course have inbuilt reaction wheel, albeit not the most powerful, but it should be enough just for us to point retrogrades and commence a burn. Obviously passive antenna, because we would like to retain control of this thing. I was thinking of, you know, if there's any way for us to put multiple satellites in one fairing, but given the size of the relay, I unfortunately don't think there is. Now, in order to make sure this thing re-enters the atmosphere in the correct orientation, I'm putting some winglets kind of in the upper stage and hoping they're going to produce enough drag to keep the nose pointing retrograde, so to speak. And of course, in order to retain stability upon ascent, we need some wings. Not necessarily wings, winglets on the bottom. However, given the stubbiness of this thing, I want these wings to be quite pointy, so I do decide to go for the structural wing type C and move them down a little bit, pop some control surfaces, and all of a sudden we have the equivalent of an AIM-54 Phoenix air-to-air missile with a satellite as its payload. Could be worse, right? And here we go, ready to go, and standard launch. Once again, just going to go straight to the poles here. This thing is very, very fast, owing to the thrust to weight provided by that mammoth engine as we get rid of our fairing here and deploy our solar panels along with our extendable antennas. And that is lovely. So far, so good. Now, we do need to correct our heading a little bit, as obviously once we enter the orbital stage, we need to correct our inclination just to ensure that we do, in fact, go over the poles. I'm not particularly concerned about our apoapsis and periapsis because once again we want this to be quite a high orbit. I'm thinking maybe 750 kilometers, as you can see. So we're just going to coast up to our apoapsis. And I don't think we're going to, well of course first things first, we're going to burn a little bit of our fuel in the lifter stage. Just to ensure that obviously we do assist the satellite as much as we can here. There we go, and we're going to detach the satellite now, and we're actually going to start our return process for the booster here, because once again, it has a guidance unit, we do have control, and it has some parachutes as well, so we may be able to return this to the surface. So just going to point retrograde, do that little burn there as you can see, which brings our periapsis down to 50 kilometers. That might not necessarily be enough for this pass, however, this thing will eventually end up splashing down, hopefully, and we can go ahead and recover that. Once again, trying to switch back to our probe, but of course we can't do it because this thing's still in the atmosphere. But here we go, skipped out of the atmosphere. What we need to do is just time warp over to our next apoapsis, and we're going to start burning prograde roughly a minute away from that marker, just to ensure that we have enough time to push out our periapsis as much as we can. Looking at our orbital speed, once again you can see how not powerful these ion engines are. They're extremely efficient, but once again they take a really long time to actually perform any manoeuvres. So at this rate I just decide why not kind of assist with our RCS, and once again going back round for another pass around our apoapsis just to ensure that that remains at roughly the same altitudes. We can do some orbital corrections once we've circularized, that won't require much effort at all. And we're almost there with our periapsis. Once again we're going for 750 by 750. 725, 30, 40 and 50. There we go. So we have a periapsis of exactly 750 kilometers. And we have a apoapsis of 750.001. So I think that's actually one of the best orbits I've ever achieved. Now, I know, ladies and gents, it's been a while since we've been here. Welcome to the Spaceplane Hangar. We're going to have a look at what we may be able to do with some of our new robotic parts. Let's just say we're not going to be building a space plane. We are going to be using something related to wings, although we don't necessarily have a proper part to do it yet. Ladies and gents, we're going to try to build a helicopter of some description. Because what I would like to do eventually is to send a helicopter to maybe Leif or Juna, or maybe even Eve or or the atmosphere of Joule to get some signs. I mean, Joule, I suppose, would be quite difficult. I mean, the RPM of that rotor would have to be absolutely ridiculous to provide any kind of lift, given how thin Joule's atmosphere is. But we're sidetracking a little bit, ladies and gents. Of course, we're using elevons as rotors because we don't actually have the helicopter rotor part yet, but needs must. And of course, it's time to improvise, adapt, and overcome. Now, as you may have already noticed, of course, this is going to be a contra-rotating propeller. I will provide you the thought process behind this design, where I'm thinking if I can spin one of the parts, then the torque may be enough to spin the other parts at an equal speed, while the reaction wheels on the actual fuselage of the vehicle may be enough to keep this thing pointing to where it needs to be, and therefore eliminate all torque from the rotors full stop, so to speak. Although, having said that, yes, we have control, but it's not quite what we would like. Now, what I have done wrong is I've actually set it up so the bottom rotor has the motor. It actually needs to be the top one, and the bottom rotor needs to free spin, as it needs to be spun by the top one and sandwiched between the bottom. And as you can see, that is working. However, it's not making much lift, is it? As you can see, so we either need to add more blades, or, given how long this thing is, it might just be a better idea, as you can see, to turn it into a type of Chinook design. Now, another test flight. Time to see what happens. Throttle up, and we lift off. Although, a bit of a oversight, as you can see, the landing legs just clip straight through, so that's fine. I think maybe worth adding another battery and possibly some solar panels to make sure this thing has enough power throughout its flight. As you can see, just trying to line those up. I think so far so good. Just redoing it to make sure they line up with the solar panels on the belly, although of course, once again, another bit of an oversight. These things are ridiculously heavy, so it's time to see, almost time at least, to see if this thing has enough lift to make it off the ground. As we just finalise our solar panel positions here. Wonderful. Let's give this another go, shall we? And as we throttle up, thankfully we do have enough lift to make it off the ground, albeit nowhere near as much. It's quite controllable, very responsive, so far so good. We're able to maintain flights on roughly 2/3 power. I call it power because, as you can see, we don't have anything resembling collective, so in real life this isn't how helicopters work the way I've built this, so I might need to address that at some other point. But as you can see, it's controllable enough for us to do a relatively smooth landing on the on our... This isn't a research building, is it? This is the astronaut complex, I think. But regardless, it can take off, it can land. So far, so good. Now, we need somewhere to pop some science, so I'm possibly thinking of adding one of these modular girder segments to possibly give a flat surface for us to place some experiments on. Once again, we need to move the rotors on top, and obviously close off the ends. I was thinking nose cones, as you can see, and we do eventually end up putting that nose cone on. Might be worth moving this modular segment backwards to kind of make the tail flush. I'm not sure if that makes any sense, but let's add a light at the front, just in case we find ourselves in a dark environment, shall we? And as you can see, we can pitch that up and down, so that's good. And maybe add some wings for the sake of stability, with some control surfaces, of course, to allow us to be able to control this thing at high speeds. Let's give it another go. So we're back on the runway, throttle up, and that's annoying. We seem to be too heavy. So as you can see, we're not getting off the ground at all. So let's get rid of those wings and see if it wants to work now, shall we? Once again, throttle up. Still too heavy. So to me, that indicates that the modular girder segments might be the problem. We are able to lift up our nose or our tail, but not both, and ultimately that doesn't mean we're able to fly, which is a bit annoying. As you can see, we can jump, but that's about it. We're on the cutting edge of of lift here. I think our thrust to weight must be 0.99, kind of on the dot, but there's no way of measuring that, annoyingly, given the means of thrust we've kind of set up. So once again, just making sure our tail is flush. This has given us a good opportunity to, of course, add the avionics hubs, which act as a couple more stability assist modules there. Throttle up. Not quite enough. I feel like if we can improve the centre of lift, we may be onto something. So we firstly might make this thing a bit lighter by getting rid of those solar panels, because once again, this is really just kind of a proof of concept before we move on to building a more practical one, kind of maybe in the next episode. We'll wait and see. This is kind of one of my guilty pleasures in Kerbal Space Program, building helicopters, because I don't really see many of them, and you know, it's one of those things I've always been interested in, especially since before they added the robotics DLC, of course. And as you can see, we do get off the ground, but that's basically the extent of it. We don't necessarily get very far, so I think once again we need to make this thing a tiny bit lighter, possibly by reducing our amount of solar panels to 1 on each side. Having some difficulty with where the part wants to attach, so ultimately we'll get rid of those, I think. Try and move some rotors so our centre of lift is directly above our centre of mass. Kind of debating where we can add some more solar panels here, so I decide we'll put some little ones maybe on the struts on the top of the modular girder segment there. Once again, as you can see, so far so good. Add some winglets at the back just to ensure that the nose doesn't dart up. And here we go, throttle up. And here we go, we've made it off the ground a little bit quicker this time, which is good. This bit is not accelerated, as ultimately this will be the kind of successful proof of concept design that we settle on. It is a little bit wobbly, however I think that's primarily down to our rotor design, and I don't particularly think there's annoyingly much we can do about this. But as you can see, we're stable and we're in the air, so on that note, we are coming up to the end of today's episode, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of a different one, but regardless, I do hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy, please do like and subscribe for more Kerbal Space Program and aviation related content. Fly safe, and I will catch you guys in the next episode.